What is going on, everybody? This is Ferris Biscuit here, back for another week of the weekly recap. And before we go ahead and get into everything that happened this past week, I do want to make a couple quick announcements. First and foremost, we do have Neff. He's actually going to be stepping down from his position on the UHL rundown due to some medical issues that he was having, obviously outside of the league. He has decided to step down, so we are going to have Novelist take over for him for the time being. So you can look forward to both Nick and Novelist coming up on this week's episode of the UHL Rundown as we look for a plan on how to proceed that way. In other news, we did announce a parting with Breezy. We're going to be going our separate ways. He's going to be focusing on things outside of the league, while obviously we here at the league are going to be focusing on building the league for the future and just continuing to make this league as awesome as it is. But in the time being, I know that we posted something earlier this week that we're only going to be continuing with 7 players. However, we are going to be changing it up, and we were lucky enough to actually find a player to take Breezy's place, and that is going to be none other than Pear. So Pear is going to be taking over again for Breezy, and she is actually going to start with a record of 0-0. Now, depending on whether or not she's able to make the playoffs in the last 4 matches, is obviously yet to be seen. So we'll see how she fares and see if she's able to make it into the playoffs, because again, it is the top 4 overall match records, and then obviously we have all the tiebreakers that can be found on the website. So that's all I have for you right now. Let's go ahead and jump right into the recap.
As we get into the score recap for this week, we can see that we had O'Leary. Although she did not play Dreaded Breezy, because again, Breezy did end up leaving the league and we parted ways, she does take the forfeit in a 3-0 victory in this case. From there, we had Andrew is Living beating Jordan Lingo 3-0. We had Ridiculous Hat beating Chris Plummer 3-0. And then we had Lore Master Eve taking on and beating Nate Wolf 3-1.
Taking a look at the other half of the scores for this week, we had Mike Lowe taking on and beating Versika 3-2. From there, we had Storm Rage taking on and beating Red Knight 3-1. Team Toast continuing this undefeated season, beating Brad Johnson 3-2. And finally, we had Spiver taking on and beating Ziggy Sarah 3-1.
Moving right along into the class selection for this week, it was already predetermined, as you well know, that this is the 3rd week in the cycle, so we'll start anew next week. But for week 3, we had Priest leading the way with 8 selections, Warlock with 7, Mage, Paladin, and Warrior all tied for 3rd at 6 apiece, and then we had Rogue, Druid, and Shaman all tied at 4 apiece, and then finally Hunter pulling up the rear with 3 selections for this week. From there, we turn the page and take a look at how the classes have been performing through the first 3 weeks of play and to this point. So we have Shaman leading the way with a 63% win percentage overall, while Warrior takes a close second with 61% overall. From there, we jump actually to a 3-way tie between Druid, Hunter, and Mage, who are all at 53% win rates overall for the season. We also have Warlock and Paladin bringing up from there at 44% overall. Priest very close behind at 43%. And finally, we have Rogue falling at a 39% win rate percentage. Again, this is through the first 3 weeks of play, so we'll see how these percentages change throughout the season as we continue on here and have a lot more games played. Taking a look at the standings at the end of week 3 for the United Conference, we have Ridiculous Hat, who is currently at 3-0, and then close behind we have Spivey, who's at 2-1 with 8 game wins and 4 game losses. We have Ziggy Sarah also at 2-1 with 7 game wins and 4 game losses. And then Mike Lowe is currently in 4th place at 2-1 with 6 game wins and 6 game losses. As we move to the bottom of the standings, we have Lore Master Eve and Versika currently tied for 5th at 1-2 with 6 game wins and 8 game losses. We have Nate Wolf also at 1-2, who has 5 game wins and 8 game losses. And finally, we have Chris Plummer currently at 0-3 with 1 game win and 9 game losses. Switching gears over to the Community Conference, we have O'Leary currently at the top at 3-0 with 9 game wins and 2 game losses. Following close is Team Toast with 3 match wins, 0 match losses, with 9 games won and 6 games lost. From there, we have Storm Rage at 2-1 with 8 game wins and 6 game losses. And in 4th place currently, we have Andrew, who is 2-1 with 6 game wins and 5 game losses. Looking into the bottom of the Community Conference standings, we have Rod Johnson currently at 5th at 1-2 with 7 game wins and 6 game losses. We have Red Knight at 1-2 as well with 5 game wins and 6 game losses. We have Jordan Lingo currently in 7th at 0 wins, 3 match losses, 3 game wins, and 9 game losses. And then finally, we have Pear, who does not currently have any statistics as we go into week 4. Now that week 3 is in the books, it is time to look ahead for the matches for week 4. This week we have Illyri taking on Team Toast, and this week Team Toast will be represented by Cora Songbird. We also have Andrew is Living taking on Pear for her first match. We have Chris Plummer taking on Versika. We also have Jordan taking on Storm Rage. Then for the bottom half of the matches, again for week 4, we have Eve taking on Ziggy Sarah. We have Mike Lowe taking on Nate Wolf. We have Rod Johnson taking on Red Knight, and finally we have Spyver taking on Ridiculous Hat.
That is going to do it this week for the weekly recap. But before we get out of here, I do have 2 more announcements to make. First is the winner of the weekly pick'em, and it is none other than Nate Wolf. He actually had a perfect pick this week, had all 8 picks correct, so he is going to be the winner. I will reach out to him and see what packs he would like to have. And actually, another big announcement. Moving forward, I'm actually going to be stepping down from the weekly recap video, and I'm actually going to, just continue to do more behind the scenes things. But in my place, we are going to have none other than Mike Lowe take over and do the weekly recaps from here on out. So if you have any other questions, you can always feel free to reach me or Mike directly. Anything about the weekly recap or anything about the league in general, you can always reach out to me and I'll probably answer whatever you may have. So thank you very much for your time this week, and see you next time.